Bettina è figlia di Paul.
Paul, could I have your age, height, and when's record gonna be, please?
21, 5'11". The next record's gonna be out soon, but I don't know. very good at forgetting who I am, because, like, as far as I'm concerned, Paul McCartney is like the name I was given.
Do you feel any kind of, I guess resentment is much too strong a word, but any kind of hesitation about the fact that you will always, in all probability, be identified as a former Beatle?
No, I don't mind it. You know, I'm always going to be identified by my real name, also Paul McCartney. You know, but that doesn't bother me. And ex-Beatle is another kind of tag, which doesn't bother me. No, I'm proud of what I've done. You know, I'm always going to be identified by my real name, also Paul McCartney. You know, also Paul McCartney. So what I wanted to try and do with Sgt. Pepper's album, what turned out to be Sgt. Pepper's, was to try and get the Beatles to forget we were the Beatles. And so I kind of hit upon this idea of us all having alter egos that will dress funny, we'll pretend we won't be the Beatles, we'll be Sgt. Pepper's band. And so that when you stepped up to the microphone and you were going to do a vocal, instead of thinking, oh, these are all my normal nerves, all my normal vocal fears, no, it won't. It's this other guy. So you could just superimpose this other person on everything you had to do in that album. And it led to a lot of fresh ideas. So everything we were going to do normally, we'd say, no, it's another band, remember, it's got to be different. So it meant that it was a very, quite revolutionary album, I think. Had a lot of fresh ideas. And I think that was the main trick. That was what I suggested to everyone. I said, look, if we'll get dressed funny and we'll be on the cover funny and we'll all think of our... So it was like a Mike Leigh play where he's got no script. But he says, no, right, what's your name? Or do you think you're a Dennis or a Bob? And you work it up from there, you know, and you gradually find this new identity for yourself. That's what I was trying to do. It was the most difficult period of my life. Number one, the Beatles were breaking up, and this was my band, this was my job, this was my life. So I wanted it to continue. I thought we were doing some pretty good stuff, you know, Abbey Road, Let It Be, not bad. And I thought, you know, we could continue. I'm scared to be the boss, and I have been for like a couple of years. You know, it's like I always feel as though I'm trying to put you down and stop you playing, but I'm not. I'm trying to stop us all playing until we know what we're playing. You know, my life could have gone a different way. You know, I had a couple of jobs in factories. That could have been my life. Am I really that guy? Is this the same body I'm inhabiting? And it is quite sort of strange. And then Paul McCartney's the sort of successful bit of it all that I'm very proud of, but I don't imagine I'm him, because it'll just blow my head off. Well, I mean, you know, I think there's always an element of that to everything I do. You know, I always sort of think, they shouldn't be paying me this money. I'm not him. I'm some little kid masquerading as this guy who is like the famous guy. It's so incredible and continues to be so incredible that I just feel very lucky. I still think it's a kind of magical thing. I still can't believe it. There are two Paul McCartneys. There are two Paul McCartneys. There are two Paul McCartneys. I suddenly realised that I didn't actually know how to set up a band. If you think about it, I'd never actually done it before. I joined the Beatles as an already set up affair.
Wasn't it Blue Lady? Lady in Blue, something like that. No, you were, I'm myself, I'm 30. But I look a little younger due to a Farrell sweater, which
excuse me, sir.
Yes?
Yeah, I'd like to take a photograph of the young lady. Do you mind?
I don't mind if Miss
Thank you, but I
Gabriella
can't take
does
it while
this.
you're there,
Well,
so
Miss
would you
Gabriella
mind
doesn't
moving?
mind,
You don't-
so do move.
Thank you,
Would you
bye-bye.
please?
See you later.
Cheers, here's to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Here's to Ringo Starr, Richard Starkey, born Liverpool, best drummer in the world, the man, my friend, my little brother. Here's to you, baby. I've been feeling alive. I've got too much on my mind. I think of everything to be discovered. Little, one of them was Stella, my little baby. She was,
Stella, who's now designing
is now
fabulous for
head of
Chloe.
Chloe.
Yeah. Yeah. But when she was a little baby.
When she was a little baby, she was riding by on our farm and, on a little pony. Mm-hmm. And she said, "Are you Paul McCartney?"
No, I'm Daddy.
Really?
Daddy.
So it's kind of him and me. Me is me that was always in this
Right.
body, and the body's just grown up.
Sure. The guy behind the eyeballs.
Yeah. And then him is that famous guy.
What's it like to be you?
Weird, man. Really. You know what? It's actually great, but it has its moments when you suddenly realize, oh my God, I'm that famous guy.
Yeah.
But it's really very nice, and I'm very thankful, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
Well, that's good because you have no choice. You're kind of stuck in being this huge icon, and then.
And how do you manage something like that? Because it was a global rumor.
But it was a little bit strange because people did start looking at me like, is it him or a very good double?
Well, that was the idea. That was the other part of it, that there was a guy who looked like you taking your place.
No, well, this is him.
Are you natural or double?
It's a secret. I can't tell you.
For years I've been able to fool people. I'm not Paul. You don't want a fake.
I cannot reveal it just yet.
What is your own personal attitude to this?
It turned out my attitude towards it is quite light. And let's face it, ain't nobody getting out of this one alive. It's you want to just tell the truth, but you've got to be guarded to some extent. All the people who come out with the truth normally get knocked down. Paul McCartney's the sort of successful bit of it all. I don't imagine I'm him, because it'd just blow my head off. Am I really that guy? Is this the same body I'm inhabiting? And it is quite sort of strange. He's having his haircut. He's having his haircut. I gotta leave the boys. He's having his haircut. Been lucky, just fallen into the Beatles. They asked me to join, so that was there. I'd never had to form a group. No, I didn't get the Beatles together at all. That was already formed.
It's a huge rumour. At one point, a conspiracy theory, if you like, that Paul McCartney was dead and that you are not Paul McCartney, you're an imposter pretending to be Paul McCartney. The internet are very passionate about this, and there's been clues, like, is it Sergeant Pepper, you play it backwards?
Everyone was stimulated with way too many stimulants.
Right.
So it was a pretty crazy time. This is true, and there wasn't really any way you could stop it. For years I've been able to fool people. I'm not Paul. You don't want a fake.